Have you ever noticed how many individuals over 50 rush into relationships not because they truly want a partner, but because they're terrified of being alone? It's the quiet fear nobody admits, especially not people our age. Before we dive in, engage with this content. It helps the platform reach more people who need this message, and answer this in the comments. Do you think individuals over 50 should date casually or look for something serious? Why? Now, let's get into today's topic. And yes, it's a controversial one. 5 reasons to reconsider a committed partnership after 50 and 60 through the lens of modern stoicism. And before you assume this is about bitterness or isolation, let me make something clear. This is about personal power. It's about clarity. It's about emotional freedom. It's about understanding the traps that older individuals walk into, the traps that quietly drain their energy, sabotage their peace, and distort their sense of self. Let's set the stage with a simple truth. The issue in this story isn't potential partners. The issue is attachment without awareness. It's the tendency for people over 50 to give up their boundaries because they're grateful for the attention. It's the hunger for validation after divorce, loneliness, or years of being unseen. It's the belief that a partner will fix a hole in your life that only discipline, purpose, and self-respect can repair. Stoicism gives us the perfect lens here. Never attach your happiness to anything you can't control. And let's be honest, another person is the definition of something you cannot control. So, let's break down the first 3 reasons. And these apply to a significant portion of people in various regions who hit their 50s and 60s and start thinking maybe it's time to settle down again. Reason 1. Many potential partners your age aren't looking primarily for romantic love. They're looking for stability and security. This isn't judgment. It's reality. And reality is what Stoicism demands we face. When you're a person in your 50s or 60s, you finally have what younger people might not. Stability, experience, emotional control, a calmer presence, financial competence. Potential partners, especially those in the same age bracket, notice this immediately. But here's a consideration. Some may be drawn not exclusively because of who you are intrinsically, but because of what you represent and can provide. And people over 50 often confuse this attention with genuine, holistic desire. A Stoic truth, attraction built primarily on convenience or provision may shift the moment those circumstances change. Think of it like this. You acquire something desirable, and people suddenly want to spend more time with you. Are they visiting you or visiting the benefit? Older individuals can be the benefit far more often than they realize. Many enter a relationship believing the connection is purely personal, but months later, they find themselves overextending financially, solving all emotional crises, adjusting their lives extensively, and feeling they receive little balance in return. It's not necessarily malicious. It can be practical. It's a facet of human nature. But it becomes a trap if you're unaware. Reason 2, you will lose your personal freedom faster than you think. People in their 50s and 60s finally reach a stage where life starts to make sense. You've survived heartbreak, careers, kids, family issues, health scares. You've earned your peace. You've earned your quiet mornings. You've earned your ability to say no without guilt. But the moment you enter a committed relationship, guess what often happens? You trade a degree of your hard-won freedom for companionship. And sometimes the companionship you receive isn't worth the freedom you lose. You start adjusting your schedule. You stop doing what you love as often. You start managing someone else's emotional world. You begin shrinking your life to maintain harmony. Stoicism teaches one powerful principle. Guard your inner fortress. Your peace is non-negotiable. Your time is sacred. Your energy is the currency that determines the quality of your entire life. Yet countless older individuals willingly hand all 3 away within months of committing to a partnership. Here's a practical example. A person retires, finally ready to travel, exercise, meditate, build a new life. They get into a committed relationship and suddenly their trips get delayed. Their personal routines collapse. They spend weekends on their partner's plans, not their own. They're managing their partner's anxiety, family issues, expectations. Their fortress slowly gets invaded not by a villain but by their own lack of boundaries. Reason 3. Disproportionate emotional responsibility will often shift onto you. This is where most people underestimate the weight of a relationship at this age. Partners, especially after 50, often carry accumulated emotional history, unhealed heartbreak, past divorces, unresolved resentment, adult children drama, financial anxieties, social insecurities, health concerns. You can easily become the primary emotional anchor. You become the stability they lean on. You may become the default problem solver, the reassurance provider, the therapist, the emotional safety net. And again, none of this makes them a bad person, but it does mean something crucial. If you take on the primary responsibility for someone else's emotional life, you sacrifice your own. Older individuals underestimate the emotional bandwidth this requires. At 25, you can handle relationship turbulence because you have energy to burn. At 55, you need your energy for your health, your purpose, your peace. A relationship can become a weight, not a support. Stoics remind us an individual must be the master of their inner weather. But most older people end up trying to control someone else's storm instead. And when you constantly manage another person's emotional world, you lose yourself. You stop noticing your needs. You stop prioritizing your well-being. You even stop pursuing your personal goals. You trade self-mastery for constant emotional maintenance. And the worst part, it happens slowly, almost silently. And by the time you realize it, your identity has already shifted. Reason 4. Relationships after 50 often push you into a disproportionate caretaking role. Here's a truth most people in their 50s and 60s won't say out loud. A committed partnership at this age can often become another significant responsibility. Not an equal partnership, not always, but often enough that you cannot ignore it. People over 50 deal with real challenges. Health fluctuations, hormonal shifts, mobility issues, chronic stress, emotional fatigue, financial instability, complicated family dynamics, aging parents, adult children or grandchildren needing help. Who often becomes the primary emotional and logistical support? You do. Not always because you explicitly choose to, but because you're perceived as the calmer one, the logical one, the grounded one, the one who handles pressure better, the one who listens instead of reacting. And when you're that person, you naturally start absorbing significant weight. Stoicism warns against this exact scenario. Don't take on burdens that don't belong to you. But in a relationship after 50, the lines blur. You start compromising your habits, your peace, your routines. You cancel personal commitments to help with their family matters. You become the driver, the planner, the emergency contact, the emotional stabilizer. You entered the relationship looking for companionship. Suddenly, you're in a primary caretaking role. Let me paint a picture seen many times. A person in their 60s meets someone who seems fun, charming, lighthearted. 6 months in, that person is dealing with medical appointments, conflict with grown children, stress from past relationships, unresolved trauma, or deep insecurities about aging. Who absorbs much of the fallout? You do. Why? Because you're reliable. Because you care. Because you don't want to be seen as unkind. Because you're empathetic. But here's a necessary truth. When you take on roles you didn't consciously choose as your primary function, you can lose the person you've spent decades becoming. You become overly responsible for a life that isn't yours. And once that dynamic begins, it rarely stops. Reason 5. You risk losing the prime of your personal renaissance. This is the final and arguably the most important reason. The period between 50 and 70 can be a strange and powerful chapter of life. You're wiser, calmer, more grounded, more selective, more confident in silence, more aware of what matters. This is your personal renaissance, a rebirth. But the moment you tie yourself to a committed partnership, especially one that isn't fully aligned with your lifestyle, peace, or pace, you risk diluting that renaissance entirely. Because relationships naturally demand compromise, and compromise is often the enemy of deep personal rebirth. You've worked your whole life to reach this stage. Your mornings are finally your own. Your finances are steadier. Your stress tolerance is higher. You know yourself inside and out. You're less impulsive. You think before you speak. You understand what drains you and what strengthens you. But when you commit to a relationship, the following happens almost inevitably. You start putting their needs consistently above your own. You adjust your habits to avoid conflict. You limit your free time. You subdue your desires to maintain harmony. You shrink your world to fit the relationship. You stop prioritizing your physical and mental growth. Your renaissance becomes a half-lived version of itself. Stoicism teaches that purpose must remain the center of a mature life. Not romance, not validation, not companionship alone, but purpose. Yet, people over 50 often get so energized by the attention of a new partner that they sideline their purpose entirely, sometimes without even realizing it. A relationship may add warmth to your life, but it may also dim the fire you've spent decades trying to ignite. The cost is not just emotional. It's spiritual. It's energetic. It's the cost of becoming someone smaller in order to keep someone else comfortable. And you must ask yourself, is this the price you're willing to pay at this stage of your life? Let's make this absolutely clear. This perspective is not saying you should avoid connection or avoid dating. It's saying something far more important. Never enter a relationship from a place of weakness, loneliness, or fear. Enter only from strength, self-respect, and full awareness. A stoic individual chooses. They don't cling. They don't chase validation. They don't bargain away their core. They don't shrink. They evaluate. They observe. They decide from clarity, not from emotional hunger. The true stoic path isn't to reject relationships categorically, but to refuse the ones that cost you your peace, your purpose, or your essential freedom. If you ever choose to have a partner in your life, let it be because they add to your life authentically, not because they merely fill a void. You might be wondering, so, what should a person over 50 or 60 do instead? Here's a framework. Simple, powerful, and direct. 1. Prioritize your purpose. Your mission is the spine of your mature identity. Make it non-negotiable. 2. Value peace over obligatory companionship. A quiet, centered life is worth more than a loud, draining relationship. Choose peace every time. 3. Consider dating casually and with clear communication, not jumping into committed entanglements. If you want companionship, enjoy it without prematurely sacrificing your freedom. Be clear, respectful, and honest about your intentions. 4th, keep your emotional boundaries sharp. Be supportive, but do not absorb. Be present, but do not carry burdens that are not yours to hold. 5th, protect your personal renaissance. This chapter of your life is rare and powerful. Don't let anyone, including yourself, diminish it. Because a person who emerges strong and centered after 50 becomes someone others naturally admire and are drawn to, not because they are trying to attract, but because they are fundamentally centered. At the end of the day, a partnership is not the inherent problem. The problem is entering a relationship blindly without understanding what's truly at stake. A stoic individual over 50 knows this truth. Freedom is priceless. Peace is sacred. Purpose is everything. Guard them fiercely. If a partner genuinely enhances these things, that is valuable. If not, You have the strength to walk away without hesitation because the person you are becoming in your 50s and 60s is far more valuable than the comfort of any unaligned relationship. If this message resonated with you, drop the phrase, "I choose peace," in the comments below so it's known you understand the deeper lesson. And of course, engage with this content to help spread this perspective.